Let's go Ravens! Coach John Harbaugh will have his work cut out for him to organize the new roster for 2025, and we hope the good guys stay. Now, many fans have been calling for Mark Andrews and Justin Tucker to leave. Despite everything, our hearts are heavy for everything they've done for the Ravens. What do you think? Is it time for Andrews and Tucker to go? Comment below with your opinion. And don't forget to hit the like button if you're a true Baltimore Ravens fan and believe we'll make it to the next Super Bowl. Man, in my opinion, Tucker should go, but I think we could give Andrews another chance. This has been a tough offseason for the Ravens, no doubt. But let's be real. This isn't just another disappointing chapter in Baltimore's history. It's a defining moment. A moment when this team has to decide if it's just another good team flirting with greatness, or if it's finally ready to take the leap and deliver a championship. Think about how we got here. That playoff loss to the Buffalo Bills still stings. January 19th, right down to the wire. A chance to tie the game with a 2-point conversion. And Mark Andrews, the guy we've trusted so many times, just dropped the ball. You could feel the collective heartbreak in Baltimore. The entire season had been building to this. A moment when Lamar Jackson would silence all the critics and stake his claim among the elite. But instead, another postseason exit. Another year of saying, next season. But that wasn't even the beginning of the heartbreak. Justin Tucker, our Mr. Automatic, found himself in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. We're still waiting to see how this situation plays out. And then there's the conversation surrounding Lamar Jackson. The way he played all season had people convinced he was about to add a third MVP to his name, but that didn't happen either. Another opportunity that seemed like it was ours, but it slipped away. And let's not forget the Hall of Fame snubs. Terrell Suggs, a dominant force from day one. Marshall Yanda, one of the best offensive linemen in the game. And we all know how tough it is for linemen to get into Canton. At least one of them should have gotten in, right? Nope, nothing. So, yeah, it's been a tough few months for Ravens fans. Then, just when we thought things might settle down, the Ben Cleveland situation pops up. Another hit. Another, are you serious moment. It's like we just can't catch a break. So, where does that leave us? Well, for once, there's actually some good news. Something positive. And it's coming from a place we usually don't expect. The wide receiver room. That's right. After years of begging, pleading, and watching the front office ignore this position, we're finally in a spot where wide receiver isn't our biggest concern heading into the offseason. Zay Flowers proved he's the real deal, making his first Pro Bowl and showing us exactly why he was a first-round pick. And Rashad Bateman, after battling injuries and inconsistent play, finally started to look like the guy we hoped he'd be. His chemistry with Lamar was undeniable. We heard about it in training camp, but we'd been burned before. How many times had we heard about a receiver lighting it up in practice only for it to mean nothing when the real game started? But this time, it felt different. Eric DeCosta went all in on Bateman, betting that with the right opportunity and health, he could be a difference maker. And guess what? It actually worked. Now don't get it twisted. There's still room to add a big-bodied receiver, someone with a large catch radius, someone Lamar can trust to go up and get those contested balls. And we know Lamar has been hinting at wanting a guy like that for a while. Would it hurt to bring in a veteran presence? Not at all. But for once, it doesn't feel like a desperate need. Of course, there are decisions to make. Tylan Wallace and Nelson Aguilar are pending free agents. What happens there? Will we see more from TZ Walker in his second season? What about Anthony Miller? He's on a reserve future deal, but is he just going to be a practice squad guy, or could he actually contribute? And then there's Mark Andrews. He's taken a lot of heat for that playoff drop. Some fans are calling for Isaiah likely to take over as TE1. Let's be clear, likely is a baller, no doubt about it. But are we really ready to move on from Andrews? We've seen this team struggle to develop weapons in the past. If you have a guy like Andrews, you don't just toss him aside because of one bad moment. Meanwhile, the offensive line needs work. The trenches matter, and right now, Baltimore has some serious holes. Ronnie Stanley's future is up in the air. Ben Cleveland is gone. Kevin Zeitler is a free agent. The Ravens need to make moves there, whether it's through free agency or the draft. We've heard names like Zach Martin, Cam Robinson, and Tyron Smith floating around. Could one of them land in Baltimore? And what about the defense? The secondary has questions. Brandon Stevens is a free agent. Marcus Williams might be on his way out. Could Kyle Hamilton's role expand even more? And let's not forget about the pass rush. The Ravens need another edge rusher. The AFC is stacked with elite quarterbacks. And if you can't get pressure, you're going to have a bad time. Look, it's easy to be frustrated. It's easy to feel like this team keeps getting our hopes up just to let us down. But here's the thing. This roster isn't far off. They're not rebuilding. They're not a team in decline. They're a team that is one or two key moves away from actually getting over the hump. We've been saying it for years, but it still rings true. Baltimore is a place where players want to be. They're a team that's always in the mix. And as much as these playoff losses hurt, they also mean that we're consistently in the conversation. So what do you think, Ravens flock? What's the move this offseason? Should the Ravens go after that big-bodied receiver? Should they prioritize the offensive line? Or is it time to make a bold move on defense? Let me know your thoughts. And let's talk about Lamar Jackson for a second. Because if we're going to have this conversation about what the Ravens need to do next, we have to be real about where our franchise quarterback stands. Lamar isn't just the face of the franchise, he is the franchise. He's the reason the Ravens are even in these conversations year after year. But the frustrating part is that despite all the talent, despite all the growth, the narrative around him remains the same. Can he win in the playoffs? Can he deliver when it matters most? And honestly, it's fair to ask. Because while Lamar has been spectacular, the postseason results haven't followed. This last loss to the Bills wasn't just on him, far from it. He did plenty to put the Ravens in a position to win that game. But when the lights are the brightest, when it's all on the line, something always seems to go wrong. Whether it's turnovers, questionable play calling, dropped passes, or defensive breakdowns, this team just can't seem to put it all together when it matters most. And that's why this offseason is so crucial. Because this is the moment where the Ravens either build around Lamar the right way or they waste another year of his prime. We've seen teams around the league do whatever it takes to maximize their quarterback's window. The Eagles, the 49 ERs, even the Chiefs, they constantly surround their QB with talent, making sure they're in the best possible position to succeed. The Ravens, they've been hit or miss. The defense is usually strong, but the offensive side of the ball has been inconsistent. And if we're being honest, they have to be aggressive this offseason. Playing it safe isn't going to cut it. Let's start with the offensive line. Because if Lamar is going to take that next step, he needs protection. We saw it last year. When he had time, he was lethal. When he didn't, the offense stalled. Ronnie Stanley has been one of the biggest question marks for years now. Injuries have taken their toll. And while we love what he's done for this team, it's fair to ask if the Ravens need to move on. Same with Morgan Moses and Kevin Zeitler. If Baltimore wants to get serious, they need to invest in the offensive line like they did in 2019. Because let's not forget, that was when this offense was at its peak. The 2019 Ravens weren't just a fun team, they were a dominant one. And a big reason for that was the offensive line. They controlled the trenches. They let Lamar do his thing without constantly having to run for his life. If the Ravens want to get back to that, it starts up front. But now, it's about execution. So the question is, will they finally go all in? Or are we going to be sitting here a year from now having the same conversation? That's up to the front office. That's up to the coaching staff. That's up to the players. But most importantly, that's up to you, Ravens flock. Because we know the passion is there. We know the expectations are sky high. And we know this fan base is starving for a championship. So what do you think? What's the move this offseason? What's the one thing the Ravens need to do to finally get over the hump? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about it, because next season starts now.